A maid noticed the same young girl entering her motel room with different dads. When she finally gathered the courage to peek through the window, what she saw made her gasp and feel sick to her stomach. The Desert Sun Motel stood like a faded mirage on the outskirts of Laredo, Texas. Its once vibrant yellow paint had been bleached by years of relentless sun, and the neon sign flickered temperamentally against the harsh landscape. The constant rumble of trucks along Interstate 35 created a perpetual soundtrack, a reminder of the motel's proximity to the busy US-Mexico border. Elena Cruz adjusted her simple blouse and smoothed her dark hair before knocking on the office door marked Manager. At 32, she'd hoped to be doing something more substantial with her life than cleaning motel rooms, but circumstances had a way of redirecting plans. 2 weeks in Laredo, and this was the only job she could find. "Come in," a gruff voice called from inside. Elena entered to find Ray Dunley, the motel owner, hunched over a cluttered desk. At 52, Ray had the weathered look of someone who'd spent decades in the desert sun. His face creased with lines that deepened when he smiled, which wasn't often. "Elena Cruz," Ray said, glancing at her paperwork. "First day, right?" "Sit down." Elena perched on the edge of a vinyl chair as Ray launched into his briefing. "Schedule's important here," he said, tapping a thick finger on a logbook. "Each day's different, but you gotta keep up. Start with vacant rooms, then rooms where guests have checked out, then occupied rooms where guests have requested service. Simple enough." Elena nodded. "Yes, sir, I worked at a hotel in Colorado for 3 years, so I'm familiar with—" "This ain't Colorado," Ray interrupted. "Things are different here in Laredo. We're right on the border. Different people, different situations." He leaned forward. "You'll do all right, long as you follow the rules." "Of course," Elena said, wondering what these different situations might be. Ray continued, "Don't stare at the guests for too long. No eavesdropping. Don't accept cash directly from guests or fulfill any special requests without running it by me first. This is a straightforward job. You clean rooms, that's it." Elena nodded again, thinking these seemed like standard instructions if delivered a bit intensely. "Any questions?" Ray asked. "No, sir, I understand." Ray nodded, seemingly satisfied. "Good. Carmen in housekeeping will show you where everything is. There's other staff here who can help if you need anything." As Elena stood to leave, Ray called her back. "One more thing, Elena. Remember, this is a straightforward job. You focus on your tasks, you'll do fine." Something in his tone made her pause, but she simply nodded again and left the office. The corridor leading to the janitor's closet took her past the staff canteen, where a group of early-arriving employees lounged before the start of their shift. As Elena walked by, the conversation dimmed, and several pairs of eyes tracked her movement. She caught fragments of whispers and noticed the smug smiles some exchanged, while others offered cold, flat stares. Great, Elena thought, another toxic workplace. Her previous job at the 3-star hotel in Colorado had been a constant battle, with staff competing ruthlessly for the Employee of the Month bonus. The environment had been suffocating, colleagues sabotaging each other's work and spreading rumors. She'd been grateful to leave, even if it meant relocating to Laredo to care for her grandmother. Her grandmother's deteriorating health had been the catalyst for the move. Elena's mother had been the primary caregiver until the stress had caused her to snap. The incident had been ugly. Her mother had nearly killed Abuela during an episode, resulting in her arrest. Now Elena was all her grandmother had left. As she continued toward the janitor's closet, Elena tried to ignore the whispering staff. Laredo wasn't her first choice of locations, but jobs were scarce, and the Desert Sun Motel had been hiring. She needed the work, needed the money. Her grandmother's medical bills wouldn't pay themselves. The janitor's closet was cramped but well stocked. Eleanor assembled her cleaning cart methodically, arranging fresh towels, miniature soaps, and cleaning supplies, just as she had done hundreds of times before. The routine was comforting, familiar in an unfamiliar place. "I just need to keep my head down and do my job," she thought. "I'm here for Abuela, not to make friends or enemies." As she wheeled her cart out into the corridor, Elena glanced back at the canteen. The group had dispersed, but a tall man with a patchy beard lingered in the doorway, watching her with undisguised curiosity. When their eyes met, he didn't look away, but instead offered a smirk that made Eleanor's skin crawl. "Things are different here," Ray had said. Elena was beginning to wonder exactly what he meant by that. Eleanor pushed her cleaning cart down the motel corridor, the wheels squeaking slightly against the worn linoleum floor. She'd been working systematically through her assigned rooms, emptying trash bins and replacing towels. The Desert Sun Motel wasn't fancy, but the routine tasks were familiar, and she found comfort in the predictability. As she approached room 109, the door opened, and a middle-aged man stepped out. He was tall with thinning hair, wearing a pressed button-down shirt and khakis. What caught Elena's attention was the young girl he was hugging goodbye. She couldn't have been more than 13 or 14, with a petite frame and long, dark hair. The girl was dressed in what seemed like too adult clothing for someone her age, a short dress that seemed inappropriate for a child. "I'll see you soon, Princess," the man said, his voice carrying down the hallway. He kissed the top of the girl's head before walking away, barely glancing at Elena as he passed. Elena continued emptying the nearby trash bins, trying not to stare but finding it difficult to ignore the scene. The girl didn't immediately return to her room but instead called out to Elena, "Hey, Maid, I need my room cleaned." Elena turned, surprised by the directness. "Of course, I'll be right there." She pushed her cart to the girl's door and parked it just outside. The girl was standing with arms crossed, looking impatient. "Is my laundry from yesterday done?" she asked, her tone more demanding than questioning. Eleanor hesitated. "I'm sorry, I'm new here. No one mentioned any laundry to me." The girl's face tightened with annoyance. "Well, I gave it to housekeeping yesterday, and they were supposed to deliver it back to me. I've been waiting." "I can check with laundry if you'd like," Elena offered. "No need, I'll go look for it myself," the girl said. "You can clean my room while I'm gone. Don't touch anything on the dresser." With that, the girl brushed past Elena and headed down the corridor, her footsteps echoing against the worn flooring. Elena entered the room and immediately noticed several unusual details. A camera was set up on a tripod near the window, angled toward the bed. On the bed itself lay a pile of various clothing items, mostly dresses and what appeared to be costume-like outfits. The wardrobe stood open, revealing not the typical overnight bag of a traveler, but an extensive collection of personal items, purses, cosmetics, shoes, including high heels, and what looked like school supplies tucked into a corner. "This isn't a typical guest room," Eleanor thought. "It looks like someone lives here." As she vacuumed and tidied, Eleanor kept glancing at the camera setup. There was something unsettling about it, particularly in a room occupied by such a young girl. Even more concerning was the absence of adult belongings. No men's clothing, no additional luggage, nothing to suggest a parent or guardian was staying with her. Elena was making the bed when the girl returned, carrying a stack of neatly folded clothes. "Finally got my laundry," she said, placing the stack on a chair. "These clothes on the bed need to be taken to laundry. They just need ironing, not washing." "Yes, of course," Eleanor said, gathering the pile into a laundry bag. As she worked, she couldn't help but ask, "Have you been staying here long?" The girl stiffened. "That's a rude question. You didn't even introduce yourself before getting personal." "I'm sorry," Elena said quickly. "I'm Elena. I just started today." "I'm Rosa," the girl replied, seemingly pacified by the introduction. She began hanging her fresh laundry in the wardrobe. Eleanor couldn't shake her curiosity. "Was that your father who was leaving earlier?" Rosa's entire demeanor changed. Her shoulders tensed and she turned to Elena with a sharp glare. "Yes, that was my dad, and it's none of your business. Are you done yet?" The hostility in the girl's voice was startling. Eleanor quickly finished making the bed and gathered her cleaning supplies. "I'll take care of this laundry for you," she said, lifting the bag. "Just go," Rosa snapped. Eleanor hurried out of the room, the door slamming behind her. As she pushed her cart away, she couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right about Rosa's situation. A young girl living alone in a motel, a father who left her here, and that camera setup. It all felt wrong. Elena's mind raced with questions as she made her way to the laundry room. Was Rosa living permanently at the motel? Why would a father leave his young daughter alone in such a place? And if he was truly her father, why had she reacted so defensively to such a simple question? The laundry room was located in the back of the motel, a humid space filled with the mechanical hum of industrial washers and dryers. Inside, a lanky man with a patchy beard, the same one who'd smirked at her earlier, was loading sheets into a washing machine. "You must be the new girl," he said, barely looking up. His name tag read Cameron. "Eleanor," she confirmed, holding up the laundry bag. "I have some clothes from room 109 that need ironing, not washing." Cameron straightened up, an amused expression crossing his face. "Ah, Rosa's stuff. Always demanding special treatment, that one." "The girl asked me to bring these here," Eleanor explained. "Can you take care of them?" "Me?" Cameron laughed. "No way, she requested you, so you get to do it." "She didn't specifically ask for me," Eleanor protested. "And I still have other rooms to clean. I need to keep to the schedule." Cameron leaned against the washing machine, his posture deliberately casual. "Look, the girl pays extra every month for her laundry service. If she handed it to you, then you're responsible. I'm not touching it." Eleanor frowned. "Pays extra every month? How long has she been staying here?" "Long enough," Cameron shrugged. "Not my business, not yours either. Just do the ironing when you get a gap in your schedule, but make sure it's done before evening, or she'll throw another tantrum like she did about yesterday's laundry." Cameron turned back to his work, making it clear the conversation was over. Eleanor set the laundry bag near the ironing station, frustration building inside her. There was clearly something unusual about Rosa's situation, and the staff's casual acceptance of it was disturbing. She returned to her cart and continued her cleaning rounds, but her thoughts kept returning to the young girl in room 109. As she mopped the corridor approaching Rosa's room again, she heard voices coming from inside. Curious, Elena slowed her pace and, against her better judgment, glanced through the partially opened curtain. What she saw made her stomach tighten. Rosa was speaking animatedly to the camera she'd noticed earlier, a ring light casting an artificial glow on her face. The girl had changed into a dress that seemed far too revealing for someone her age, complemented by high heels that looked difficult to walk in. She was striking poses and speaking in a tone that sounded practiced, almost adult-like. "Maybe she's just making videos for friends," Eleanor tried to rationalize. "Teenagers do that these days, don't they?" But even as she thought it, she knew this didn't feel like innocent social media fun. The makeup, the provocative clothing, the professional-looking setup, it all hinted at something more concerning. Enjoying the view? The voice behind her made Elena jump. She turned to find Ray standing there, arms crossed, his expression unreadable. I was just, Elena stammered, "in my office now." Ray's tone left no room for argument. Elena's heart pounded as she followed Ray to his office. She'd been caught peeping into a guest's room, a clear violation of the very rule he'd emphasized this morning. But surely the circumstances warranted concern. Once inside the office, Ray closed the door and took a seat behind his desk. "Want to explain why you were spying on a guest?" Eleanor took a deep breath. "I heard voices and got curious, but Mr. Dunley, I'm concerned about that girl. She's so young to be staying alone, and when I cleaned her room, I noticed things that seemed inappropriate. The camera setup, the adult clothing." "A man who says he's her father pays for that room," Ray interrupted. "Cash every month like clockwork. He pays extra for special services, which amounts to laundry, extra cleaning, and extra privacy." "But she's just a child," Eleanor pressed. "And the way she was dressed, what she was doing with that camera." "This is a motel, not a boarding school," Ray said firmly. "We provide a room and basic services. What goes on inside those rooms isn't our business, unless it's causing damage to property or disturbing other guests." "But if she—" "Listen carefully, Elena." Ray leaned forward, his voice lowering. "That girl has had different men show up claiming to be family. One said he was her uncle, another her stepdad. I don't know what's going on, and frankly, I don't want to know. As long as rent is paid and she's not in immediate danger, it's not our place to intervene." Eleanor couldn't believe what she was hearing. You see a young girl with different fathers every night and don't think that's cause for concern. Ray sighed, a sound of weary resignation. Look, things happen at motels in this area that might seem sketchy to newcomers. This ain't a five-star resort. Her dad, or whoever he is, pays a month at a time, all cash. The girl seems okay, has food, shelter, and security. That's more than a lot of kids get around here. But, no buts, Ray cut her off. This is a straightforward job, Elena. You told me during the interview that you know how to keep things to yourself. Clean the rooms, be courteous to guests, and stay out of other people's business. Don't listen in, don't watch, and definitely don't get involved. Finish your shift. Go home. That's all there is to it. Eleanor felt a cold disappointment settling in her chest. She'd hoped Ray might share her concerns, might even be willing to take action. Instead, he seemed resigned to looking the other way, perhaps even complicit in whatever was happening to Rosa. Are we clear? Ray asked, his tone making it clear this was not a request but a final warning. Yes, sir, Eleanor replied, the words tasting bitter in her mouth. Good. Now get back to work, and stay away from room 109 unless you're specifically there to clean. Elena left the office, her mind churning with conflict. She'd taken this job out of necessity, but could she really continue working in a place that turned a blind eye? As she pushed her cleaning cart down the corridor, she caught sight of Rosa again stepping out of her room. The girl didn't notice her, but Elena couldn't help observing her confident stride, the adult-like mannerisms, the way she carried herself as if playing a role. I should just do my job and ignore it, Elena told herself. Everyone else does. But even as the thought formed, she knew she couldn't. Elena knew she couldn't turn away. Whatever was happening to Rosa, she had already made up her mind. She was going to find out. There must be some way to get to her. The clock on the wall showed it was approaching noon. Eleanor's stomach rumbled, reminding her she hadn't eaten since early morning, but her appetite had diminished after the conversation with Ray. She returned her cleaning cart to the janitor's closet and headed toward the staff canteen, her mind still preoccupied with Rosa's situation. As she walked, she spotted the girl now heading toward the front desk. Elena considered approaching her again, but remembered Ray's warning and Rosa's hostility. Instead, she continued to the canteen, only to find it crowded with staff on their lunch break. Cameron sat at a table with several others, and they all turned to stare when she entered. He nudged his neighbor, whispered something, and they laughed. The tension in the room was palpable. Eleanor felt unwelcome, an outsider stepping into established territory. Between her encounter with Ray and the hostility from her co-workers, her appetite vanished completely. What's wrong with these people? I'll just go do the laundry instead, she decided, turning around and heading to the laundry room. The space was empty now, the only sounds coming from the rhythmic tumbling of dryers. Eleanor opened Rosa's laundry bag and began laying out the items one by one on the ironing board. The clothing confirmed her suspicions, short dresses revealing tops, items no child Rosa's age should be wearing. Some pieces looked expensive, with designer labels, while others seemed cheap and costume-like. Teenagers these days, Eleanor murmured to herself, trying to rationalize what she was seeing. The fashion is different than when I was young. But deep down she knew this wasn't just about fashion trends. As she worked her way through the pile, ironing each piece carefully, something caught her attention. A pair of men's pants, out of place among the girls' clothing. Elena held them up, confused. They were large, adult-sized, and definitely not Rosa's. How did these get in here, Eleanor wondered. Perhaps they'd been accidentally mixed in from another guest's laundry. She began ironing them anyway, feeling something hard in one of the pockets. Reaching in carefully, she pulled out a small card. It wasn't a credit card or ID as she'd expected. Instead, it was a glossy business card with Rosa's name printed on it, alongside a social media handle and what appeared to be an account ID. The platform name wasn't familiar to Elena, not one of the mainstream social media sites she knew. Curiosity got the better of her. Setting the iron aside, Eleanor pulled out her phone and searched for the platform. What she found made her blood run cold. It wasn't a normal social media site, but a live streaming platform known for provocative content. With trembling fingers, she typed in Rosa's account, ID. The profile loaded, showing thumbnails of past broadcasts. Elena's hand flew to her mouth in shock. Though nothing explicitly inappropriate was visible in the preview images, the suggestive poses, the adult-like styling, and the comments scrolling alongside, it all painted a disturbing picture. Elena quickly closed the app, feeling as if she'd witnessed something she shouldn't have. Her mind raced with questions. Was Rosa doing this voluntarily? Was she being coerced? And who were these men claiming to be her father? A normal teenage girl wouldn't choose to live alone in a motel, performing for strangers online, Elena reasoned. There must be adults enabling this, profiting from it, but who? As she finished ironing the clothes, Elena couldn't shake the feeling that she needed to do something. Rosa clearly didn't trust her, and Ray had made his position clear. The police? Would they take it seriously without clear evidence of a crime? Could calling them make things worse, leave the girl even more exposed? And what if she was wrong? What if it was all just a teenager's rebellion, a game, a phase, and this was nothing more than a terrible misunderstanding blown out of proportion? Police involvement, media attention. It could all spiral fast, destroying the girl's future for no reason. The media would eat up a story like this without a second thought. No, Elena needed something real. She needed evidence. Elena thought about her own childhood, the safety and security her parents had provided. She thought about her grandmother, frail and dependent now, but who had once been her fiercest protector. What would Abuela tell her to do in this situation? Hacer lo correcto, Elena, she could almost hear her grandmother say. Do the right thing. With sudden resolve, Elena took a small notepad from her pocket and wrote a simple message. Do you need help? Beneath it, she added her name and phone number. She folded the note carefully and tucked it into the pocket of one of Rosa's freshly ironed dresses, hiding it where only Rosa would find it. It was a small gesture. Maybe Rosa would find it and reach out when she was ready. It was a lifeline if she chose to take it. Elena gathered the ironed clothes and arranged them neatly in the laundry bag. As she left the laundry room, she felt a mixture of fear and determination. Her job might be at risk if Ray discovered what she'd done, but some things were more important than employment. That girl deserves better, she thought firmly. Someone has to care enough to try. With the laundry bag in hand, Elena headed toward room 109, prepared to face Rosa again, and hoping that her small act of intervention might make a difference. Elena walked purposefully down the corridor toward Rosa's room, the freshly ironed clothes carefully arranged in the laundry bag. As she turned the corner, she froze at the sight before her. Rosa was returning to her room, but she wasn't alone. A heavy-set man, at least 3 times her size and completely different from the one Elena had seen this morning, was walking beside her. His meaty hand engulfed Rosa's small one, and the girl was leaning against his arm, her head resting against his bicep in a gesture that seemed both intimate and rehearsed. Elena quickly ducked back around the corner, her heart racing. Another dad, she thought incredulously, or an uncle or stepdad this time. She waited until they entered Rosa's room, then took a deep breath and approached the door, laundry in hand. She had a legitimate reason to be there now, delivering the cleaned clothes. It was the perfect cover to check if Rosa was okay. After a moment's hesitation, Elena knocked firmly on the door. The door opened just enough for Rosa to peer out, her expression shifting from annoyance to recognition. "Oh, it's you." "I've brought your laundry," Elena said, holding up the bag, "all ironed as requested." Rosa opened the door wider, allowing Elena to enter. The man was sitting on the edge of the bed, scrolling through his phone. He barely glanced up as Elena stepped inside. "Just put it on the chair," Rosa instructed, her tone curt. Elena did as she was told, taking the opportunity to scan the room discreetly. The camera was still set up, but now angled away from the bed. The curtains were partially drawn, casting the room in a muted light. "Did you have lunch yet?" Elena asked, trying to sound casual, while searching for any signs of distress on Rosa's face. "I could bring something from the cafeteria if you're hungry." Rosa's eyes narrowed suspiciously. "Why do you care?" "Just being helpful," Eleanor replied with a shrug. "It's past lunchtime and—" "I've already eaten," Rosa cut her off, "and you can get lost now. We don't need anything else." The man finally looked up from his phone, his gaze moving between Elena and Rosa with idle curiosity. There was something in his eyes that made Elena's skin crawl, a calculating coldness that seemed to evaluate her worth in a single glance. "Actually," Rosa added, her voice dropping to a hiss, "I know you were looking through my window earlier. I saw you. Do that again and I'll report you to management." Elena felt her cheeks flush with embarrassment and fear. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to—" "Just go," Rosa said firmly, already pushing her toward the door. "And stop trying to be my friend. I don't need one." The door closed in Elena's face before she could respond. She stood there for a moment, stunned by the hostility and the finality of Rosa's rejection. The girl clearly didn't want her help, or at least she was adamant about appearing not to want it. How can I help someone who doesn't want to be helped? Eleanor wondered, a wave of helplessness washing over her. She trudged back to the canteen, finding it quieter now that the lunch rush had ended. Taking a tray, she selected a sandwich and coffee, then found an empty table in the corner. Her mind replayed the interaction with Rosa, trying to make sense of the girl's behavior. Was she truly content with her situation, or was her hostility a defense mechanism, a wall built to protect herself? As Elena ate, she noticed a group of staff, Cameron among them, huddled around a table on the far side of the room. They were staring at a phone screen, laughing and commenting in low voices. When Cameron tilted the screen slightly, Eleanor caught a glimpse of what they were watching, though she couldn't make out the details. "9 online again," one of them said, loud enough for Elena to hear. Elena's stomach clenched. She hadn't caught the words clearly, and the screen was too far away to see. But had they really said room 109? Rosa? Maybe she was just imagining it. Maybe all of this had gotten under her skin more than she realized. The staff member couldn't have known about Rosa's account. No one could, not unless they were already looking. And surely if something that awful was happening, someone, anyone, would have come forward by now, right? Before she could process this disturbing realization, an older woman, the canteen supervisor, approached the group. "Break's over," she announced firmly. "Back to work, all of you." The group dispersed reluctantly, Cameron shooting Elena a look as if daring her to say something. The canteen supervisor then turned to Elena, her expression unreadable. For a moment it seemed like she might share some insight. Instead, she simply turned away without a word. "I need to calm down," she told herself. "It's my first day on the job. I'm probably just overthinking everything. Ray knew about this. The staff knew too. They couldn't all be complicit in something criminal, especially something against a minor. If something really bad were happening, someone would say something. At least one person would report it. Wouldn't they?" As she cleared her tray, Eleanor made a quiet decision. She would finish her shift, do her job, and keep her eyes open. The note was tucked into Rosa's laundry. If the girl needed help, she would know how to reach her. The afternoon dragged on in a blur of routine tasks. Eleanor cleaned rooms, restocked supplies, and wiped down surfaces, all while her mind remained fixated on Rosa. The mechanical nature of housekeeping allowed her thoughts to wander, piecing together the disturbing puzzle she'd stumbled upon. By late afternoon, with an hour left in her shift, Elena realized she'd completed most of her assigned duties. The motel was small, and with efficiency born from years of experience, she'd cleaned every level, room and restroom on her schedule. Might as well make myself useful, she thought, deciding to organize the janitor's closet. The previous custodian hadn't been particularly tidy, and the shelves were a jumble of cleaning products and supplies. As she sorted through bottles of disinfectant and window cleaner, Elena discovered they were running low on all-purpose cleaner. She'd need to check the storage room for more, but she wasn't sure where it was located. Making her way to the front desk, Eleanor intended to ask for directions to the supply storage. As she approached, movement outside caught her attention. Through the lobby windows, she saw Rosa walking out with the heavy-set man from earlier. It was just after 4 p.m., and the afternoon sun cast long shadows across the parking lot. The man waved casually at Rosa before getting into a dusty sedan. Rosa didn't wave back, but stood watching until the car pulled away. Then, rather than returning to her room, She turned and began walking in the opposite direction, arms crossed tightly across her chest. "Excuse me," Eleanor said to the front desk clerk, a middle-aged woman with bleached blonde hair. "Where can I find more cleaning supplies?" The clerk glanced up from her magazine. "Storage rooms down the hall past the ice machine, keys on the hook by the staff entrance." Eleanor nodded, but her eyes drifted back to the window, following Rosa's retreating figure. "First time seeing our special guest?" the clerk asked, noticing Elena's distraction. "I cleaned her room earlier," Elena replied carefully. "She seems very young to be staying here alone." The clerk shrugged. "Newcomers always get curious about her. Don't worry about it, she's safe here." "Safe?" Eleanor couldn't hide her incredulity. "That man went into her room for 2 hours and just left. This morning I saw a completely different man with her. How is that safe? Who are they?" The clerk sighed, setting down her magazine. "Look, honey, it's not our problem. Ray said she's got a lot of men in her family. Those guys could be her dad, or maybe she's got 2 dads or uncles, who knows? And even if those men were—" She paused, then shrugged. "She seems fine with whatever's going on. Don't create trouble where there's none." "She's a child." "This is Laredo," the clerk replied, as if that explained everything. "Police here have bigger problems than a girl who has shelter and food. Someone reported it once, a while back. Girl was gone for a month, then she came right back. Same room, same routine." "So the police confirmed it was just family members?" Eleanor asked. "Yeah, that's what I remember," the clerk said with a dismissive wave. "They looked into it, said it was all family. Ray claimed he's listed as her guardian. After that, the staff who reported it got fired, and since then everyone just keeps their heads down." Ray didn't mention anything about being her guardian, Eleanor thought, her brow furrowing. Still, the new information eased something in her chest, at least a little. The clerk's expression hardened. "You do what you want on your time, but if you cause problems here and that girl's father gets wind of it, things could go bad for everyone. This motel isn't much, but it's steady employment. Most of us can't afford to lose that." Elena nodded and turned away without a word, though her stomach churned as hard as her mind. She retrieved the key to the storage room and gathered the cleaning supplies she needed, but even so, her mind wasn't on the task. Even with the clerk's explanation, something didn't sit right. That strange, persistent feeling lingered, an unease she couldn't shake. "Why can't I just accept this?" she wondered. "Maybe it's because I used to work at that nicer hotel back in Colorado. This place, it's not exactly an upgrade. Maybe it's everything here, the atmosphere, the people, that's making me feel this way." As she returned to the janitor's closet with the fresh supplies, Eleanor spotted Rosa again, this time returning to her room. The girl was walking with her head down, arms still wrapped protectively around herself. Even from a distance, Eleanor could see that her cheek appeared redder than before, as if she'd been slapped. Rosa unlocked her door and disappeared inside, the door closing firmly behind her. Elena stood frozen in the corridor, cleaning products clutched in her arms. Every instinct told her to call the police immediately, to report what she'd witnessed and her suspicions. Setting down the supplies, Elena approached Rosa's room quietly. She stood outside the door, listening. At first there was silence, then the sound of muffled conversation. Rosa was on the phone. "No, Daddy, please," Elena heard through the thin door. "I'm tired. I know I need to work harder. I'm sorry, please, just not today." Moving to the window, Eleanor peeked through a gap in the curtains. Rosa was sitting on the edge of the bed, phone pressed to her ear, head bowed in submission. Tears streaked her cheeks, and the redness Elena had noticed earlier was indeed a handprint. Eleanor's hand flew to her mouth, stifling a gasp. The girl's pleading voice, the fragments of the conversation. Likely Rosa wasn't doing this willingly. She was being coerced and probably abused, as the redness shone. And though Elena didn't know the full extent of it, one thing was painfully clear. The man she called Daddy wasn't protecting her. He was forcing her to keep working despite her, a minor complaint. Eleanor stepped back, her decision made. She reached for her phone, ready to call the police regardless of the potential complications. Some things are more important than a paycheck, she reminded herself. Some things are just right or wrong with no grey area in between. But as her finger hovered over the dial button, Rosa's door suddenly opened. "Excuse me," the girl called, her voice surprisingly composed, given the tears Elena had just witnessed. "Are you the one who wrote this?" Elena turned to see Rosa holding up the note she'd slipped into the laundry. Her heart leapt. The girl had found her message. "Yes," Elena admitted, taking a step toward her. "I'm worried about you, Rosa. If you need help—" "This is your last warning," Rosa snapped, her voice cold and unyielding. "I don't need your help, and I don't want you hovering around my room. Leave me alone, or next time, I'll report you to your boss. I'm serious, got it?" The hostility in Rosa's voice was shocking. Elena had expected, hoped for, a different reaction. "Rosa, please." "Stay away from me," Rosa insisted, tearing the note in half and throwing the pieces at Elena's feet. "I mean it." The door slammed shut, leaving Elena standing in the corridor, the torn pieces of her offer of help scattered on the floor. She bent down slowly, picking up the fragments of paper, her chest tight with disappointment and confusion. Why would she reject help so vehemently? Elena wondered. Is she that afraid? Or have they convinced her this is normal, that she deserves nothing better? As she straightened up, Elena caught sight of her reflection in a decorative mirror hanging in the corridor. She saw the uncertainty in her own eyes, the conflict. Should she respect Rosa's wishes and back off? Or should she act on what she knew was right, even if Rosa herself rejected the intervention? Any normal person would just look away. That's what everyone else at the Desert Sun Motel had chosen to do. It was the safe path. The end of Elena's shift approached. She put away her cleaning supplies and untied her apron, hanging it in her assigned locker. The day had been emotionally draining, filled with discoveries and disillusions she hadn't expected on her first day of work. Maybe I should just walk away from this job, she thought as she gathered her personal belongings. Find work somewhere else, somewhere I can be at peace and just do my job, and sleep at night. But as quickly as the thought formed, she dismissed it. Walking away meant abandoning Rosa. Whatever was happening to that girl, leaving her situation unchanged, wasn't an option Elena could live with. As she exited the motel into the late afternoon heat, Elena's thoughts turned to her grandmother. The old woman would be waiting for her, probably sitting by the window in their small rented apartment, watching for her granddaughter's return. Abuela had always been strong, decisive, and moral, a compass when life grew complicated. What would she advise? The bus stop was just meters away from the motel entrance. As Elena approached, she noticed an old car parked nearby, windows rolled down, loud music blaring from inside. 4 men sat in the vehicle, huddled around a phone, laughing and commenting to each other. "Rosa's getting a lot of viewers today," one of them said as Elena walked past. Her steps faltered at the mention of the girl's name. She slowed, pretending to check her own phone while straining to hear their conversation. "Girl hasn't paid as much this month, though, from those comers," another man said, his voice gravelly and ominous. "Needs to learn her lesson." "But look," a third chimed in, "you hit her and now her cheek's all red on camera." "Makes her look more appealing," came the reply, followed by snickering. "A natural blush. Maybe it means she needs extra shifts." "Rosa still brings in the best money compared to the other girls," the first man commented. Elena's blood ran cold. Other girls. So this was indeed an exploitation, and it was organized, an operation. And those men, they weren't just viewers of her channel. They were paid to collect money from her, maybe even the ones managing Rosa's performances. She continued walking, maintaining a casual pace while her mind raced. Once she'd put enough distance between herself and the car, she pulled out her phone. Her fingers trembled as she searched for the right number. Not for 911, not the local police, not this time. She needed bigger authority. Someone outside this town. She tapped in the number for the Texas Child Welfare Hotline. When the call connected, Eleanor spoke softly but urgently. "I need to report a possible case of child exploitation," she began, providing the motel's address. She described what she'd observed throughout the day, Rosa's living situation, the different men visiting, the live streaming activities, the staff's awareness and inaction, and the conversation she'd just overheard suggesting multiple children were involved. "I'm not making accusations," Eleanor said carefully. I'm just telling you what I've seen. This child needs help, maybe others do too. No, I don't trust the local police. A co-worker said she came back even after a police report. Yes, please. I want you to send someone reliable for this. I need to know someone will actually do something. The representative took her information, assured her they would investigate, and thanked her for calling. As Eleanor ended the call, a weight lifted from her shoulders. She'd done what she could, reported her concerns to the proper authorities. Now professionals would determine the appropriate next steps. Her relief was short-lived. "Who the fuck are you?" The harsh voice behind her made Elena's heart skip. She turned to find two of the men from the car standing there, blocking her path. One was holding her phone, which she realized must have been knocked from her hand without her noticing. I don't know what you mean," Elena stammered. "We saw you listening," the taller man said, stepping closer. "Now you're making calls? Who are you working for?" "I'm just a maid at the motel," Elena said, backing away. I don't know anything." "Bullshit," the second man growled, grabbing her arm. "You were eavesdropping, and now you're reporting something. What did you say on that call?" Eleanor tried to pull away, but his grip tightened painfully. She looked around desperately, but the street was empty, no passers-by who might intervene. "Let me go," she demanded, trying to keep her voice steady. "I need to get home." The taller man stepped closer, his face inches from hers. "You're pretty enough to make money for us too. Maybe that's how you'll pay for sticking your nose where it doesn't belong." Fear shot through Elena like an electric current. These men weren't just going to threaten her, they were suggesting something far worse. "Leave her alone." The unexpected voice pierced the tension. Elena turned to see Rosa standing several yards away, her small frame tense with defiance. "Go back to your room, Rosa," the man holding Elena ordered. "Your live stream isn't over yet. This doesn't concern you." "Let her go, Harry," Rosa insisted, her voice stronger than Elena had ever heard it. "She's just a stupid maid. My room's right by that window. I can't do the live stream like this. She doesn't know anything important." The men exchanged glances, seeming unsure how to handle Rosa's interference. The moment of hesitation was enough for the taller man to release his grip on Elena's phone, which clattered to the ground. Elena seized the opportunity to wrench her arm free, but the second man immediately recaptured her, his fingers digging into her flesh painfully. She cried out as he twisted her arm behind her back. "You're coming with us," he hissed in her ear, "both of you." The man lunged toward Rosa, who tried to evade his grasp but was too slow. He caught her by the wrist, pulling her toward the waiting car despite her struggles. Eleanor fought desperately against her captor, managing to land a blow to his side with her free elbow. He cursed and struck back, his fist connecting with her cheek. Pain exploded across her face, and she staggered, vision blurring momentarily. "She's pretty enough to make money for us," one of the men repeated, voice thick with malice. Through her daze, Eleanor heard Rosa still fighting, still yelling. The sounds seemed distant, muffled by the ringing in her ears from the blow. But then another sound cut through, the unmistakable wail of police sirens. Multiple cruisers were approaching, lights flashing, accompanied by an unmarked black SUV. The men froze, their grip on Elena and Rosa slackening in their shock. "Police, hands where we can see them." An officer's voice boomed through a loudspeaker. The men released Elena and Rosa, raising their hands slowly as officers emerged from their vehicles, weapons drawn. Within moments the situation transformed, the predators now cornered and afraid. Eleanor sank to her knees, trembling with relief and delayed shock. Her face throbbed where she'd been struck, and her arm ached from the man's grip. But she was safe. More importantly, Rosa was safe. As officers handcuffed the men and secured the scene, a woman in plain clothes approached Elena and Rosa, showing identification. "I'm with Child Protective Services," she explained gently. "We received a report and coordinated with police. You're both safe now." Eleanor nodded, unable to speak through the emotion tightening her throat. She looked at Rosa, who stood rigid, arms wrapped around herself, expression unreadable. Their eyes met, and in that moment, Elena saw something crack in Rosa's carefully constructed facade, a glimpse of the frightened child beneath the forced maturity. Police cruisers and CPS vehicles crowded the motel parking lot, their presence drawing curious stares from the few guests and staff alike. Officers escorted the handcuffed men into separate patrol cars, while others established a perimeter around the scene. Elena sat in the back of an ambulance, an ice pack pressed to her swollen cheek. A paramedic checked her vitals and gently examined her injuries, confirming nothing was broken. "You'll have some bruising," she told Elena, "but nothing serious. You were lucky." Lucky. The word seemed inappropriate given what had transpired, yet Elena knew it was true. The timely arrival of law enforcement had prevented a far worse outcome for both her and Rosa. Through the open ambulance doors, Elena could see Rosa sitting in the back seat of the CPS worker's car, her small form half hidden by the window. The girl hadn't spoken since police arrived, answering questions with nods or shakes of her head, her earlier defiance replaced by wary silence. "We need to go back to the motel," Elena told the paramedic, removing the ice pack. "There's more to this than just those men. The whole operation is based there." The CPS worker, who had introduced herself as Maria Delgado, approached the ambulance. "We're heading inside now. The police have a warrant to search room 109, and they want to speak with the motel manager. Would you feel up to coming with us? Rosa seems to trust you, at least more than she trusts us." Elena nodded, carefully climbing out of the ambulance. "Of course." Together they walked to the car where Rosa waited. Elena slid into the back seat beside the girl, who stiffened but didn't move away. "We're going to get your things from your room," Maria explained to Rosa. "Is there anything specific you need us to make sure we collect?" Rosa shook her head, eyes downcast. "Hey," Elena said softly, "it's going to be okay. These people are here to help." "That's what everyone always says," Rosa muttered, speaking for the first time since the police arrived. "It never works out that way." The bitterness in her voice broke Elena's heart. Before she could respond, Maria opened the car door. "Let's go inside," she said. "The police are ready for us." They entered the motel lobby to find it transformed into an impromptu command center. Officers moved purposefully between rooms, while Ray Dunley stood at the front desk, face ashen as he spoke with a detective. When he spotted Elena with Rosa and the CPS worker, his expression shifted from concern to something more calculating. "This is all a misunderstanding," he was saying to the detective. "I run a legitimate business here." The detective raised a hand to silence him. "Mr. Dunley, we have evidence that your motel has been used as a base for the exploitation of minors. Our records show you were listed as the girl's guardian following a staff report made 2 years ago. Your explanation and your level of cooperation will heavily influence how this proceeds for you, legally." They moved to Ray's office, where officers were already examining computer files and paperwork. The space suddenly seemed cramped with so many people inside. Ray, the detective, Eleanor, Rosa, Maria, and 2 additional officers. Ray's shoulders slumped in defeat. "I'll tell you whatever you need to know. Just, please, look at the previous report. It shows I was only listed as her temporary guardian while she stayed at the motel. She has a father, Malcolm Tress. He paid for her room every month and told us she couldn't stay home because she was too wild and rebellious, always online, inviting stranger over. And we were told, explicitly, not to get involved if she did that here." "Rosa, can you tell us about your living situation here?" the detective asked, his tone gentler than the one he'd used with Ray. Rosa remained silent, her eyes fixed on the floor. "Maybe I can explain what I've observed," Eleanor offered. When the detective nodded, she described everything she'd witnessed during her single day at the motel. Rosa's isolation, the different men claiming to be her father, the live-streaming setup, the staff's awareness and complicity. "I don't think this is just a teenager acting out," Eleanor said firmly. "I believe she's being forced into exploitation, and from what I overheard, there may be other children involved." "Is that true?" the detective asked, turning to Rosa. The girl's hands trembled in her lap, but she remained silent. "Rosa," Maria said softly, "we want to help you, but we need to understand what's happening. You're not in trouble." "There's no way out," Rosa finally whispered, her voice barely audible. "It's all in vain." "We can help you," Maria assured her. "You won't have to go back to this life." Rosa looked up then, her eyes suddenly fierce. "That's what the last one said too, but I always end up back here every time." The raw hopelessness in her statement hung heavy in the room. Eleanor moved closer to Rosa, crouching beside her chair. "Rosa, I know you think nothing will change, but these people are taking this seriously. They won't let you fall through the cracks this time." "You don't understand," Rosa said, turning to Elena. "We're nobodies. We live in this wretched part of the world, and nobody really cares what happens to us. This will only make my dad angrier when he finds me again." "Your dad?" the detective asked. "Was he one of the men we arrested outside?" Rosa shook her head. "Those are just his men, my real dad. He has many children, you know. He loves them all except me." "Why is that?" Maria asked gently. "Because my mother was a prostitute," Rosa replied, her voice steady despite the pain behind the words. "He never wanted me. My mum never wanted me either, but then one day he decided to take me anyway." A heavy silence filled the room as Rosa continued, words spilling out as if a dam had broken. "Then he made me live here alone, said he would never love me, but if I dance on social media, people would love me. He said I'd get fame and attention, things I would never get from him or my mum. I had to send him all the money. I'm a minor, he said. I don't need money. But he promised I'd have fans who would love me." Eleanor felt tears stinging her eyes as Rosa described how her exploitation had evolved from seemingly innocent dancing videos to increasingly suggestive content, bringing in more viewers and more money. "Sometimes I feel empty inside despite the praises and comments," Rosa admitted, her composure finally cracking. "Then the physical pain when they hit me, the emotional pain when they say cruel things. I've learned to accept it. This is my life. It's better than ending up in a brothel like my mother. At least that's what he tells me." "You deserve so much better," Eleanor said fiercely, taking Rosa's hand. "This isn't your fault, and it doesn't have to be your future." "This is my fault too," Rosa said, nodding slowly. "I didn't try to get help. I gave up on the world, and I taught myself to love that darkness." The detective cleared his throat. "Rosa, do you know if other children are being exploited by your father?" Rosa hesitated, then nodded slowly. "I'm not sure how many, I've never met them, but I've heard him on the phone talking about his stable of talent. He said I was the first, that he saw how profitable it could be with me, so he expanded." The room fell silent as the implications of Rosa's revelation sank in. This wasn't just about one girl's exploitation. It was an operation potentially victimizing multiple children. "Do you know where your father lives?" the detective asked. "Could you help us find him?" For the first time, a flicker of hope appeared in Rosa's eyes. "Yes, I know exactly where he is." Ray, who had been silently observing, suddenly spoke up. "I can help too. I have his address. He always puts it on the payment receipts." The detective turned to Ray, his expression hardening. "Mr. Dunley, you're facing serious charges here. Failure to report suspected child abuse is a crime under Texas Family Code, not to mention maintaining a property for unlawful activity." Ray's facade of neutrality crumbled. "Look, I tried to stay out of it. I didn't want trouble, but I'll cooperate fully now. Give you everything I know about this man. Provide all the security footage, payment records, everything." As Ray pulled up the information on his computer, an officer displayed a satellite image of the address. Rosa confirmed it was her father's house, pointing out distinctive features that verified the location. "We'll need to move quickly," the detective said, already radioing for additional units. "If these men don't report back, he might flee or destroy evidence." As preparations for the raid on Rosa's father's house accelerated, Eleanor remained by the girl's side. The CPS worker explained that Rosa would be placed in emergency protective custody while a more permanent arrangement was determined. "What will happen to me now?" Rosa asked, her voice small. "You'll be safe," Maria assured her. "We'll find a good placement for you. You'll go back to school, have a chance at a normal life." Rosa seemed unconvinced. "I don't know what normal is anymore." Eleanor crouched down to meet Rosa's eyes. I know everything seems uncertain right now, but I want you to know that everyone is broken in different ways. But we keep moving forward, doing the best we can. You've been so strong, Rosa, stronger than anyone should have to be at your age. Now, it's time to let others be strong for you. A tear slipped down Rosa's cheek, perhaps the first genuine emotion she'd allowed herself to show. I know what I was doing was wrong, she admitted quietly. Those people online, they said they loved me, but it felt empty, meaningless, just words from strangers who didn't really care about me. You'll find real connections, Eleanor promised. Real friends who care about who you are, not what you can do for them. Rosa reached into her pocket and pulled out the torn pieces of Elena's note, which she had apparently retrieved and kept. You're my rescue angel, she said, a fragile smile breaking through her tears. I'll keep this to remind me of what you did. I won't forget you. Eleanor felt her own eyes filling with tears. You can always reach out to me with that number. I mean it, and I'll see through this that you'll be placed in a safer place. As they prepared to leave the motel, police officers escorted Ray and several staff members, including Cameron, to patrol cars for further questioning. Cameron's earlier smugness had vanished, replaced by evident fear as the reality of his complicity dawned on him. Outside, Elena watched as Rosa was gently guided to a CPS vehicle. The girl turned back once, raising her hand in a small wave. Elena returned the gesture, her heart heavy yet hopeful. A police officer approached Elena. We'll need your statement at the station, ma'am. Elena nodded. Of course. As she climbed into a patrol car, Elena glanced back at the Desert Sun Motel, a place that had appeared ordinary on the surface, but had concealed extraordinary darkness within its walls. Her first day on the job had become something entirely unexpected, an opportunity to make a real difference in a child's life. The desert sun was setting as they drove away, casting long shadows across the parking lot. Elena thought about her grandmother waiting at home, how she would explain the events of this extraordinary day, the bruise forming on her cheek, and the decision she'd made to not look away when it would have been easier to do so. Some people hide behind masks, Eleanor reflected. Some run from difficult situations. But complacency in the face of suffering, particularly a child's suffering, was something she could never accept. As the motel receded in the distance, Eleanor felt a sense of resolution wash over her. Whatever came next, for Rosa, for herself, for all those involved, she had done what was right. And in a world that too often looked the other way for those who don't want to be helped, that had to count for something.